It's like I'm walking on sunshine.
This is DoomCast number 7. Today is the 11th day of September 2013. My name is Doug Owen, and I am alongside my co-host and partner here in the DoomCast, Mr. Charlie McGrath. There's a lot to get into tonight, of course. It's the 12th anniversary of 9/11, and if you've been watching the television, we've had the accurately portrayed revisiting of the terror, the emotional event relived over and over again for the American people. So we've done it one more time this year. More awareness campaigns, a lot of interesting stuff that's happened in the 9/11 truth movement, if that's what you want to call it. The awareness campaign to bring more attention to some of the faux pas and other smoking guns in the event. I think that we should talk about those topics. I sent out a newsletter today, and if you received it and you're aware of the show, we do it every Wednesday, and you got that. If you didn't, you should sign up for it. I talked about the tragedy and trying to really calculate the losses that we have suffered since 9/11 is really hard to even gauge because there's so many different things that have come out of it. So we're going to probably explore some of those tonight. I've got a lot of news. You've got some stuff too, Charlie. I've got some audio. I've got some other things that I want to share with the program. But first and foremost, welcome, my friend. What's up?
Well, I'm just dooming it up here, and I'm kind of in a weird place today, and it's probably a lot to do with 9/11 and seeing all this crap. Starting at 5 o'clock this morning, at least Mountain Time, so whatever, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, but watching this, revisiting it, and like you were saying, rehashing it, and it just, I sat back this morning trying to have a cup of coffee, trying to pull stories for the site, and I'm like, man, look at how far we've fallen in this past decade. It's I'm kind of in a place where I think you were last week a little with just it's all the waves of reality are slapping at you, and you're like I can't believe how we went from point A to this place now, where at every turn we're seeing further destruction of our freedom, further destruction of our liberty, and more Orwellian talk out of establishment media and out of Washington, D.C. about freedom and democracy and the greatest nation on earth, the exceptional United States, how we are the defender. Listening to the president last night, how we are the defenders and the champions of the children of the world in Syria, and we're the only ones that can step up to do the right thing. And this whole giant con game, right? That the
right.
nation, for the most part, Doug, our fellow Americans are, not the doomers, not the folks that tune into you and me all the time, but and a growing, segment of the population. But for the most part, they just buy into this crap, man. And it's just it's very sad day for me, but, not as much, a very doomer day for me, but not as much because, what the media wants us to be all sad and bummed out about, which was, this event on 9/11. I'm sad for the nation for a different reason. It's because we were put on a path of tyranny. We were put on a path of an embarrassment to the world. And, it's far worse now than it was in 2012 anniversary, far worse in 2011, and all the way back. It just keeps adding up. And, sometimes when I sit back and I, as we both do, pull these stories and talk about these things, it just seems that it's not a matter of, is it going to turn the corner? It's just, when's it going to step into this full-on collapse, this full-on embracing of reality, and this full-on realization that we've been spent into oblivion and warred into oblivion and lied into oblivion. Maybe we should have Oblivion Cast.
Oblivion, yeah. If I
it's
could
hard
say
to say.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't
We're gonna
roll
stick
off the
with
tongue
Doom.
very nicely. Oblivion Cast.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and today I was kind of bummed out as well. And I've been talking with a lot of people about the emotional tasking. I think all of this war talk and trying to, I guess, compel those that are only taking a cursory look at what's happening today in the world and trying to shake them out of this complete apathetic and ignorant, blissful condition that we see a lot of people in. And a lot of it's just because it's easy to turn away from things that bring you more emotional trauma in your own life, because plenty of people already have so much of it. And I hear that all the time. I just can't take it. I can't hear that today. I just cannot take that. So I understand that, and I understand that people are getting a fistful of fury on a daily basis, and there's plenty of stuff to get worked up about. But I do think it's important to kind of look back and remember what happened on 9/11. Now, you may be aware of the Rethink 9/11 campaign. Are you, Charlie McGrath?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, this is something, rethink911.org. Actually, it's a Kickstarter project where they came together and put forward, I think, a few $100,000. I'm not sure exactly how much money they got, but put billboards in downtown New York, in Times Square, in Chicago, Toronto, Vancouver, L.A., New York, Dallas, San Francisco, San Diego, and London. And I've got a clip here of what they have on their website, and this is the campaign that they are promoting. So this is some audio from their campaign.
Did you know that a third tower fell on 9/11? At approximately 5:20 p.m. on September 11, 2001, World Trade Center Building 7 collapsed in 6.5 seconds from normal office fires, according to the government's final report.
World Trade Center 7 collapsed because of fires fueled by office furnishings. It did not collapse from explosives or from fuel oil fires.
Later, the government finally admitted that Building 7 collapsed at the rate of freefall after trying to deny it. So what's wrong with a building in freefall? What is freefall?
It's just like taking your car keys out and just dropping them. That's how fast the building came down, for over 100 feet.
This is high school physics.
A building cannot do free fall with 40,000 tons of structural steel in its structural system without it being blown up.
The only way that a building can accelerate as it collapses is by having pre-engineered, precisely timed, and precisely placed explosives.
All right, so anyway, that's where people will go once they see these banners. And Ben Swan actually did a really interesting piece on this as well, and just brought a little bit more attention to this awareness campaign, Rethink 9/11. And one of the things that immediately hit me was the fact that they have these guard elevated tower booths for the police in New York City. It was kind of weird because, I've posted articles. I've seen these things. I'm aware of it because of the headlines. I saw it in Yahoo News a year ago, maybe more, that they were planning on putting those in New York. But to see them there and all of the people just hanging out around it and just kind of being normalized to this very German-esque watchtower, something that you would imagine in East Germany. Quit fiddling over there, Charlie McGrath, with your microphone.
Am I fiddling?
Are you a fiddler?
I'm sorry, buddy. I didn't realize I wasn't. Shut up. I didn't do anything.
No, I'm just teasing.
Hold on a minute. I got to fix this. Am I having technical issues here again? Because I wasn't touching a thing. I swear. Hands free.
Hands free. I think your mic's just maybe. It sounds like it's loose. It was
right
loose,
now,
like
still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, it's good now. It's good.
All right, I'll just do this. I'm sitting here weeping. I'm listening to.
Weeping is my deal. You shouldn't be so doomy. Last week I was pretty macabre.
I'm doomy, man. I'm
doomy.
Look, huh? Can you hear me?
I hear you fine now.
All right. Look, I'm listening to you talk, and and it's always awesome listening to you talk, Doug Owen. I'm not going to lie. But I'm listening to that clip about Building 7, and even though I wasn't familiar with the organization you're talking about, certainly I'm more than familiar with the evidence.
Yeah.
Damn it, Doug! The evidence is everywhere, everywhere.
So what's the big smoking gun for you, Charlie McGrath? What's the big smoking gun for you? What was the one thing that really compelled you? Was it a documentary film? Which ones are your favorites? Speak to me.
Oh man, Lindsey Williams.
Lindsey Williams, really?
No. I'm trying to reverse the funk. Look, I don't have any one smoking gun. You know, my smoking gun was serving in the Gulf War in 1991, and then fighting it again in 2000. Listening to the same crap again, the same people, the same players, the same actors. You know, 2 decades later, or excuse me, a decade later in 2001. And obviously, the whole nation was caught up in the "oh my God" moment. Everybody remembers where they're at. But the smoking gun is everything that's happened since then, and it isn't. And it's probably, honestly, what brought me to the realization that it was, at the very best, right? At the very best, our government knew what was coming. That's at the very best. At the very worst, we know the actors and the involvement of the powers that be in pulling this thing off. And so, if we look at 9/11 as a whole and as a key pivotal moment, that is when the total script was flipped on governance on this planet and our future. Now, you asked me for a key event, and it doesn't really have anything to do with 9/11, but my key event would have been years later, right? When I really, really put all the dots together. It was the second terrorist attack that we've had in the last decade, and that was a financial terrorist attack by a lot of the same individuals who profited from Building 7 falling at freeze-fall speed. But that was in 2007, 2008. In the financial collapse.
Interesting. I've got a segue. I mean, because if you haven't noticed, Hank Paulson, former Secretary of the Treasury, has come back, and now he is threatening the U.S.
boys.
once again, saying that we're going to have an economic depression, that it's going to be worse, that it's coming, that there's going to be economic Armageddon, and he's speaking truth, talking about the unregulated shadow banking sector and actually, I've got it right here because I was going to mention it.
I can't wait. I'm sure Hank Paulson.
Hank Paulson's. I called him an economic terrorist. This is my note. Economic terrorist returns with truth and solutions. Be wary of his solutions. Paulson calls the too big to fail phenomenon "quote unquote" unacceptable and proposes more stringent capital and liquidity requirements in order to minimize the advantages enjoyed by larger financial institutions. Pretty interesting, considering that he is a Goldman Sachs lapdog.
Well, he was the CEO of Goldman Sachs. He was the CEO of for those who don't know, that are just tuning. And you know what? It was long enough ago that maybe if you were 12 years old in 2008 and you're waking up now, understand the words that Doug's about to play. Hank Gunslinger Paulson held the nation hostage. He put a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch yellow Post-it note in the shape of a gun to the head of the American people and said, "Give me $700 billion or else." And when our Congress, the last representation we had in Congress, they said, "We're not bailing out these banks." They crashed the market 700 points. The $700 billion was eagerly handed over, and then all hell has broken loose since then. And this is the guy who used to be at the head of Goldman Sachs, who was at the time the head of the Treasury Department, who is now coming back like a bad penny just to rain on everybody's parade with his wisdom once again. Doug Owen, do it.
You know what? I just have the comments here. Those were some of his quotes. I don't have an audio clip for him per se, but no, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, but I've got the quote here. He said, "quote unquote, world should prepare for new financial crisis." So if that's not provocative enough, I don't know what is. But consider the source. This is the man that helped bring us to our knees in the largest financial transfer ever. And, just speaking back to the question that I posed to you real quickly, about 9/11, because I did mention that I would throw this out there. I've looked at a lot of the documentaries. I think Loose Change did a very good job with popularizing and bringing some of the questions that I had initially to the forefront, and that's great. Unfortunately, though, when most of the most popular documentaries about 9/11 came out, they were front-running the, I think, best and most definitive information. And so once we got to Loose Change Revision 3 or through about 15, 16, 17, 18 different documentaries, which have manifested in a lot of different movements that's come out of them, from the Zeitgeist movement, Peter Joseph doing that. I mean, that was one of the first documentaries that I saw that kind of woke me up to some of the questions I had. But kind of threw 9/11 and Christianity and a little dogma into the mix. Some of my atheist-type friends seem to really like that because, there's nothing like trying to prove that God is dead. And interestingly enough, he just did a video with Ozzy, and this out of the 9/11 Truth movement, where the song, and I'm not sure if it's a song or not, don't quote me, but it is God Dead? And so I played that on the pre-stream. It's kind of goes back to a classic Sabbath-sounding song, and it's his latest. So that's pretty interesting, to see that.
Wait a minute, is that a new song?
Yeah, it's a new song that Peter Joseph directed the video, and I think he actually wrote the song. But the album, and I have to see, it references the Zeitgeist movement. But that was one of the initial videos.
Do I say it wrong when I say Zeitgeist? Because I don't know.
Zeitgeist is right. It's kind of like data and data.
Yeah, they're not. That's not both right, because it's Data. Data is a robot on Star Trek.
It could be. Yeah, tomato, tomato, my friend. Tomato, tomato.
All right, buddy. I'm not going to bust your chops for being wrong.
I'll bust them all day long. That's what you're here to do. That's why. But one of the things I was just going to mention is the fact that so some of the initial videos and most of the catalog are kind of dated comparatively with some of the new information that Rethink 9/11 and other people brought forward. So I think that's unfortunate. Zero, an investigation into 9/11 is one of them that was my favorite, and I put a link in the newsletter to it because it was very academic and it asked some really, I think, interesting questions, like showing Osama bin Laden in many of the videos that we got from Intel Center, and asking the obvious question, why would a man that's a religious fanatic that wants to attack America because of his devout religious beliefs, and why would he be wearing gold? And in several of the videos, he's wearing gold. So if he's not a religious zealot, if he's not an ideologue, then there has to be another motivating factor for what pushed bin Laden to do what he did, allegedly, ostensibly, and that is money, love. I mean, how many other things are out there? Property, wealth. I mean, there's only a few things that motivate people to do anything beyond God. I think that most wars you can equate to either one of two things: money, property, land, all that.
What do you think,
or
Doug?
God.
What do you think? I mean, the connection between bin Laden and the U.S. There's not even a question there. There's not even a question.
Well, I think people they shy away from actually addressing who did this. And wholeheartedly, I truly believe the one person that you can hold completely culpable and legally, I think, take to court and charge with war crimes is Dick Cheney. Hands all over it. Change the shoot down hierarchy, the permission system or the rules, so that only the president from this 1957 NORAD precedent, where the military had the ability to shoot down enemies, put that in the hands of the president just months beforehand. He was the one that gave the stand down order and allowed whatever hit the Pentagon to hit the Pentagon unmolested. He was the one that allowed, notably, the commission to become completely compromised and worked at the disinterest of bringing any amount of truth. And now, according to almost all of the commissioners, and I've got a bunch of notes that we're going to append to the show, and hopefully I can get you to put these into the video as well.
Yeah, no problem.
That break down all of the things that Dick Cheney did to absolutely stymie any truth reaching the American public. So I could go on for hours, but Dick Cheney, Don Rumsfeld, they were key architects, and they had to work with, I think, Mossad as well as others, very deeply tied to the military-industrial complex. P-Tech, Able, Danger, those are some fine research points to look into. Of course, all of those drills that happened that day. But just the amount of circumstantial evidence and the fact that the government, and I say that and use that term broadly, did everything it could. It conspired to keep everything secret, and the people that were directly involved financially and allowed the bin Laden family to fly out of this country when every plane and jetliner in the country was grounded, if not the world. I mean, globally, people were in Europe were grounding their flights.
Absolutely.
Why? Oh, why? And this is, and oddly enough, I have to give credit to Michael Moore because of his documentary film. And this is one of the few things, I wouldn't say one of the biggest smoking guns, but one that has been forgotten by the mainstream media for sure, is that the bin Laden family are good friends and financial partners with the Bushes, and Arbusto Oil was started in the 80s with George Bush. So let's not forget the people who were directly connected to the family. And bin Laden, by the way, never claimed to his dying day, whenever that was, that he was behind the 9/11 attacks. So there are just so many things that you could take to any court, any grand jury, which there was one that was stymied as well. So there's a lot to take away from it. But Zero Investigation into 9/11, probably one of my favorites, just because it's more academic, less about personalities and egos.
Right. Yeah, I agree. There's been a slew of evidence, right, and a slew of good documentary. But Doug Owen, I think that one thing that I've noticed, especially over the last 5 years, is it doesn't. I mean, it especially over the last 5 years. Let me reiterate that, because it seems like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much proof we have. It doesn't matter how in the know the awake crowd is, or how many pilots they get or engineers they get to sign on board. It just doesn't seem to resonate in a mind-controlled populace.
Oh, well, you're not going to get those people ever, Charlie. I mean, and here's the thing. Once you win, once there's consensus reached, once it's hip, once the media tells them that it's okay, then those people will be on board. So I try to articulate this, and it's kind of hard, because it's not to say that the general public, you should dismiss them, but to win the general public, you have to win the media, or you have to win the battle to reach people individually. And you can do that now with the internet. And
it certainly
for the
is
first time
happening.
ever, and it is happening.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back. Let's go back to 1973, September 11th. Do you know what happened that day, Charlie McGrath?
1973.
September 11th, 1973. There's another September 11th that others are mourning.
If you give me enough time on this Google machine,
you know what? Save the Google machine.
I'll save the Google. Go.
A CIA-backed military coup overthrew Salvador Allende, the democratically elected president of Chile. Now,
1973 Chilean coup d'etat.
Yep. So, Mr. Henry Kissinger, who was the first person appointed though kind of scrutinized by the choice. But he was the first guy that was going to head up the 9/11 Commission. That did not take place, but that was George Bush's initial choice because it takes a war criminal to understand why.
Sniff out a
Well, to empathize with another war criminal. So it's a grand choice, but they just decided to lie and refuse to follow the law, and that worked well for them. So, you look at a false flag attack. That was one that happened 40 years ago. And speaking of false flags, this is another meme that's going on. I don't know if you heard about this, but I got wind of it maybe Saturday, and this came out of RT. So I want to talk about some of the World War III memes. I've got some audio on this, and then we'll grab some other headlines. And I've got some other comments for you that you might like.
A number of anonymous sources close to the Syrian conflict have told RT that rebel forces are planning to launch a, quote, provocation attack using chemical weapons against Israel. Live now to RT's Paul Eslier in Tel Aviv for more on this. Obviously, those concerns that are uncorroborated, but let's talk about where they may have come from and how strong they may be, those concerns being greeted very seriously in Israel.
Well, it certainly will be taken very seriously here in Israel. Nothing as of yet in the Israeli press or any kind of official comments. What we know is that RT sources are telling us that they have information that in the nearest future there will be an attack originating in the areas of Syria where the rebels are present.
All right, and this goes on. Now, the question is, the Associated Press can get away with this. Reuters, maybe, Blowhard, windbag radio host can get away with this. But can RT get away with citing RT anonymous sources? And who would those RT anonymous sources be? AKA, is it Veterans Today? Is it some other website that they're going to? Is this whatreallyhappened.com? Because I'm a fan of What Really Happened. Is it blacklistednews.com? My website. Right. Who knows what the source may be? I'm interested, but can they get away with this, or is this going to be scrutinized heavily because it is RT?
Yeah. Well, I don't think. I think the powers that be, establishment media, they want to ignore RT and they want to ignore Press TV, and they, for the most part, do. But in reality, if we're going to accept CNN and their video evidence, or this administration or this government and their video and tweet evidence, this is every bit as solid, Doug. This is every bit as solid as the reports that came out of the Mossad that they overheard a phone call that somebody in the Syrian army was talking about a chemical war or a chemical attack. So I don't know.
Not nearly as interesting as the 100-page report that the Russians have put together. Yeah. And now one of the other memes is that Vladimir Putin is a better foreign policy geopolitical actor.
I want you to get onto Putin, but I want you to go back to the meme on RT.
Yeah. World War III, false flags, kickstarting it.
Okay. All right. I was looking for a source on who was calling them out on their sources.
Oh, no. I was just calling them out because they just said that they had anonymous sources.
But don't you think
I hold AP to a higher standard, but people don't. That's what I was just kind of,
You hold, wait a minute. You hold AP, UPI, Reuters. You hold them to a higher standard?
Well, I just don't like the fact that people say, well, we have anonymous sources, or at least when people say it, I don't take it seriously.
But they do. AP does it all the time.
But that's what I'm saying. But when they do it, the world accepts that. But will the world accept it when RT does it? That's my question.
I got you. And my answer is yes, I do, because I think the people that watch RT and the people that are tuning in to Press TV, I think they are Al Jazeera in a lot of cases. They are looking for information outside of the establishment, hot plastic babe sitting in front of the camera telling you that everything's okay because it's 9/11 and we've killed 1 million people on this planet. And so people
talk about Abby Martin like that. I mean,
that's all of them like that.
Oh, okay.
But that's funny. But it's all the babes, fill in the blank, bet network babes.
Yeah.
And dudes too. They go for the the really good looking dudes in the $5,000 suits and they make sure that they get the camera angle on the babes with their legs hanging out and tell you that this is the greatest country on earth. And so, to see RT flourish, I love it. Now, I don't, I'm on there quite a bit, and so maybe I'm a little bit biased about them, and certainly I know for a fact, because I talked to their producers, that there's a spin on it, right? They're not just 100% looking for exposing the truth. It seems they always have a spin on their news, but show me one that doesn't. Show me one that doesn't.
Here's an interesting commercial that I saw on RT. You want to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Irene. I'm Lisa.
My name is Tom. I'm a graphic designer,
College freshman. Stay-at-home mom with a full-time job.
scholar on social policy, and a barista. And I'm just like you.
I'm an Obama supporter.
I support President Obama.
But the president needs your help.
Our president can't launch into another war without you. And remember, when we voted for him in 2008 and 2012, we promised to support him no matter what. Together, we can do it.
That's why we here at the Americans for Whatever Barack Obama Wants, Did You Know He's Friends with Jay-Z, have launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund World War III. And America is dead-ass broke. So our goal is to raise $1.6 trillion on behalf of the U.S. government.
That's where you come in.
Even a small donation would make all the difference.
World War III is a very important, very progressive war that Obama tells me is very important. So it must be.
When I first saw the president speak in 2008 in a YouTube clip posted to my Facebook page, I knew he was going to be right all the time. So I support World War III and IV and any moon war the president may want to start.
I mean, and it goes on and on and on, and then I just had to ask the obvious question. What's going on, RT? What's up with this?
It's hilarious.
Yeah, that's not really on RT. That is one of the problems they've had with the Syrian missile strike.
Wait a minute, where'd you get that from? That's awesome.
It's on blacklistedradio.com, and I'll put the links on the in the show notes. But I don't know where it came from. It's actually, I've got the video there, and it has the name of the group. It's a skit. It goes on and on and on. It's really funny. It starts talking about putting people in internment camps, but they're going to have Wi-Fi, and that all of the tanks will be hybrid Priuses, and that the bombs are going to be grass-fed organic bombs. And why? Because Obama. They're like, why? Because Obama. It's pretty good. Joy Camp. But, that's what I was going to say. So they've stalled, and the memes have come out, and I was on the money. I said that the world government, the Global Security Council, the UN, and the international community would have a resolve, and they would use this as a way to show that global government can work together to bring an end to the crisis in Syria. And that is playing out to the T. But World War III and possible false flags, they're always out there, and we're still waiting for the October surprise. So before you get all gooey inside, it's not that we're not on the precipice of doom on so many different levels. It's absolutely doomy out there. But World War III might be cute and fuzzy. Here's Joy Camp's take. Are you familiar with Joy Camp?
I am.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
This was not only a direct attack on human dignity, it's a serious threat to our national security.
We urge the president to up his game.
What we saw in Syria should shock the conscience of the world.
Assad also issued a stern warning about Western retaliation. Chaos and extremism will spread. The risk of a regional war exists.
Welcome back to the World War III pregame show. Another showdown in the Middle East for America. This, of course, piggybacking on classic matchups with Iraq, Afghanistan, and most recently, Libya. The undefeated America is steamrolling its way to world domination, and the question is, will anyone be able to stop them? Will Syria represent the revival the Arabs have been looking for? Reverend G, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, praise the Lord, okay? Another war is on the horizon. I could not be more excited. Let's take a look at America's track record. We've had to overcome a lot. We've got conspiracy theorists just popping up left and right. And, of course, terrorism. Yeah, we can't forget about terrorism. Threatening our freedom every single day. But the wild card here that nobody saw coming and not a lot of people are talking about is Israel, their involvement in all of this. I mean, come on, guys. We all saw what happened in Palestine.
What they're doing in Palestine.
Right, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, it's ruthless stuff going on over there, folks. You know, they're acting like beasts. They're beasts. All right? Now, with Israel's support from the sidelines, Syria's in some real hot water here.
KK, how do you see this one playing out?
Well, B-Man, I am glad you asked.
So it goes on, this whole pregame show, and that's kind of what it seems like if you turn on Fox News. It seems like, or any of the other, I guess, stations that are out there that have comedians instead of real journalists. Not
Right.
that comedians aren't great, but
They're not
but
journalists, and they're loaded with
Rachel
them.
Maddow and what's his face, Bill Maher. Jon Stewart, I guess, does a better job. At least he makes some of the doom kind of palatable. But his brother is the head of the New York Stock Exchange. At least he was. I don't know if he still is.
Well, at least
but
he portrays himself as a comedian first. I mean, these other ones portray themselves as legitimate journalists, and once again, they're just paid to look good and deliver the canned message. But
just like me.
No, you do look good, Doug Owen. You're a good-looking dude.
Thanks.
You're a good-looking doomer.
Thanks. So's Rachel Maddow. She's a handsome young man.
She is a handsome. Oh, that's not nice.
What?
What? She's. Come on.
What is that? A hate crime now? I can't make fun of
course
her
it is.
for being.
No, you're in Texas. You can get away with
butchy.
that.
Yeah. That's a compliment.
Listen to
in
me.
Texas.
Listen to me. Here's the deal. I'm still funking out 40 minutes into the DoomCast tonight, and I'm still trying to deliver a message at least on some level or another about 9/11, and we're talking. We've kind of morphed into the Syrian war that's on hold, but I mean. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the program, where I sit back and I look at this constant barrage of destruction of humanity. And it isn't just freedom here in the United States or in Western Europe or in Eastern Europe, or it's the entire planet is now in this boiling cauldron, and we don't know where the next shoe is going to drop or what's going to be the spark. But these folks that are joking around about World War III and stuff, it is funny, and I really like the "We'll follow Obama everywhere" skit because
he's friends with Jay-Z, by the way.
Yes, and it does help to. I think it does help to in some people's mind, it helps to plant that seed of doubt and maybe question. But in another respect, it's scary as hell, Doug. It's scary as hell how close we are to something like a World War III. It's bad enough that 1.5 million, 2 million people have died over the last 10 years prosecuting a war against an enemy that has no country and no border and cannot surrender, and a very clean and tidy event for the United States, only losing about 7,000 soldiers. I say that tongue in cheek, but what happens when it is a Russia or China that decides enough's enough? Today, the Russians put one of their aircraft carrier killers into the Persian Gulf, or into the Mediterranean rather. So every single day we see escalation, we see more rhetoric. It becomes more harsh. Powers at the UN a week ago was just lambasting Russia. And it was one of the reasons why I thought this attack was going to happen regardless. It was imminent. It was going to happen in any minute. Is the language and the ferocious nature of that language, not only at Syria but at their allies in Russia and in China, but namely Russia. This push to war, constantly engaging in conflict, is never ceasing. It doesn't stop, even when the comedy's rolling, even when the president comes out and gives a 15-minute dunce of a speech talking about we're going to play it safe for a few days. It is still in hardcore, full-court press towards war. And without it all, economically and our whole purpose for being at this point comes to a crashing halt. So I really think these same powers that be that we talked about earlier, that could easily be implicated into 9/11, that are profiteering hand over fist by the continued expansion of what we've called the security industrial complex and military industrial complex. They understand that without war, the U.S. starts to lose its purpose on this planet at this point. And that's a scary proposition. I know, like I said, I like humor, and I like these guys calling this out and bringing people to bring it to their attention. But in reality, I'm a little bit terrified by how
well, let's
close.
think about this. I mean, wars and rumors of wars are always used to.
You're getting biblical, aren't you?
What's that? What's that?
You're getting biblical now, aren't you?
No.
Oh.
But the truth is that regardless, because of what Barack Obama has done, call it a lose, call it a victory for Putin, it's moved this thing forward. It has stopped the stalemate, and there's something on the ground. Was it a mistake? Was it a faux pas on John Kerry's part by offering the 1 week? Well, this is what people are saying, because he offered put this rhetorical statement on the table that Vladimir Putin, because he is just so good at foreign policy, was able to swoop in and become this hero and save the day, because and up show the U.S. and of course John Kerry, who he and John McCain are just stumbling over one another. As far as trying to be.
I thought it was interesting last night. Obama took credit.
I didn't see it last night, unfortunately.
I recorded it. You want me to send it to you? I can send you in a drop.
I'm sure I can see it online.
I'm sure it's available.
I'm sure it's available.
Well, in his speech, he talked about his talk with Putin at the G20 was one of the things that led to that, and of course the threat of killing a bunch of Syrians. And his discussions with Putin at the G20 have led to this current development, which, what does that play out? It plays out tomorrow, I think. Kerry meets with the foreign minister of Russia. And, my predictions, as I left you a message the other day, are completely not on track at this moment. So I'm not going to make any prediction on what's going to happen. But it certainly wouldn't surprise me if this whole deal came unraveled, and
at least in the short term, right?
I think in any term, what
I mean is that ultimately the control of the Middle East and towards the Caspian Sea states, towards the encirclement of Russia and China, we know that is ultimately the idea here, and really at the cost of much more. We're not talking about just Syria, but China actually snatched the TAPI pipeline. And if you're not familiar with the TAPI pipeline, it's something I kept up with for quite a while. Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India are working together alongside the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to create this energy syndicate, and this pipeline project was something that the U.S. was spearheading and had pretty much in the bag. But because of actions on the ground in the Middle East, and because of just the frowning on the heavy debt burden, and all of this you can tie right back to 9/11 on the United States, because really Washington's blog just put this epic piece out, and it's a flashback from 2012. The headline is, "The failure to investigate 9/11 has bankrupted America." The failure to do this, according to economists like Joe Stiglitz, estimating the $3 to $5 trillion spent on the Iraq war alone has been very bad for the economy. It's almost 18% of the total national debt, and this is just in a short amount of time. Not to mention those tax cuts for the rich, not just rich people that are beyond the 1%. Those people are so minimally impacted, but the welfare state and the changing of laws so that individuals would have a lot harder time trying to bankrupt and couldn't absolve student debt, other things like that, while allowing corporate debt and restructuring to just escape any comprehensible regulatory action. So basically, that is really what the crux of it. There's a great graphic here. You can find that article at blacklistednews.com towards the top, or just go to Washington's blog. But the police state, we haven't even talked about what that has done specifically on 9/11. Here's a good note, a little nugget. Dick Cheney initiated the continuity of government plan that ended America's constitutional form of government. If you're not familiar with continuity of government, or NSPD, National Security Presidential Directive 51, you should check that out, because when people say that the world changed, it absolutely did. Because when that plane flew into the budget analyst office at the Pentagon, $2.3 trillion worth of unknown, unexcusable, and unaccountable debt that had been stolen by the military-industrial complex, or I guess ostensibly, who knows really what happened to the money. Some people even, including myself, wonder if they used that money to build some pretty high-tech space weaponry. And the plans were on the table with future combat systems and some other takeaways that I really think that they were trying to cover up, leading into or following out the late 1990s and early 2000s. So that that's kind of up for debate as to what happened to the money. But what is interesting is that all of that, not to mention some of the biggest financial scandals that had ever crossed the SEC's table, were all blown to bits on that day. Very interesting. We're talking about trillions of dollars worth of criminality that just went up in smoke. They couldn't find the black boxes, but they found they found
Saudi passports,
the passports, and
well, I'm looking right now because I'm curious. I'm sure I've looked this stat up before, but the above board sovereign debt in 2000, versus what it is in 2013. I mean, between 2008 and now, it's doubled. This is what we know about, right? This is
paying for a tank in every small town across America was not cheap. It wasn't cheap to create this police state. It hasn't been cheap to create the global force for good. That's what they call the Navy now. That is the.
Oh my God! Tell me about it. You can't go to. You can't see a movie. You can't go anywhere. Without seeing. You can't. What? You don't have television. So
no, I watched football over at my friend's house and everything.
Well, then you saw it. You saw it. You see the commercials where the damn Navy is an aircraft carrier flowing around, telling you how we're a global force for good. Or another commercial where they have a bunch of kids that are Navy personnel reciting some oath. I don't know what it is because it isn't the oath you take in the military. Where they talk about they're going to obey they don't mention the Constitution or protect the nation from enemies, foreign and domestic. They just talk about how they're going to obey the orders of those appointed above them. And this nonstop propaganda is truly troubling. And you know what? It ties in to the whole psyche of the nation since 9/11. Right? Yeah. The whole psyche of the nation is. We have to be on a constant footing of war. Doug, there's an entire generation.
People are still searching for something. I wanted to say this. People are still searching for something. They're trying to find meaning in the rubble that is the war-torn countries that have been in the path of globalization. People are looking for something besides oil, besides pipeline contracts, besides...
They don't want to believe that. They don't want to believe that. They don't want to believe.
They want to believe that all that money, at least we've done something, that the people are a little better off than they were under the maybe false pretenses, maybe it was lies that predicated all of this, but they still.
Doug, what do you think the world looks like in a dozen more years?
Oh man,
what do you think it looks like? I mean, when we're sitting here for 20,
it depends on where you're at. I think that you're going to see more of the divide between the haves and have-nots in this country. I think that economic divide is becoming greater, and more people are becoming the 99%, not to just bang that meme or anything, but are becoming the unaccounted, unemployed, uninsured, the people that cannot afford to really prosper because they are debt-ridden, people that have made bad choices that are heavily scrutinized and penalized because of that, the tightening of the screws on the people. I think more of the, it depends on what happens.
If you say more of the same, I'd have to agree with you. I don't see it.
At some point, it has to stop. There's going to be a deceleration. There's already blowback. We're already seeing a big push towards state rights and the revival of people interested in the 10th Amendment, hence the 10th Amendment Center. We're seeing a lot of localism come out of this, which is the opposite of globalism, and that is...
Thanks for breaking that down for me.
What's that?
Thanks for breaking that down for me.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm talking, if you look at what that really means, I mean, it's not necessarily always a good thing, just have little people, living in villages to the nth degree. But when you have people that are more interested in their own backyard and doing what's good for their local community, as opposed to looking at what's good for people that are under oppression in a third world nation, because it's very subjective whether you're helping or hurting. But if you had people that are more focused on that, not that trading with other people in a very globalized world now today because of the internet and the telecommunications backbone that we have, people being able to communicate and share.
Well, I agree with you on the pressing forward.
But I think that there's going to be that point. I mean, and we're already kind of seeing that where there's huge amounts of blowback. People are starting to understand surveillance. They're starting to understand, regardless of how fictional maybe the narratives are and, what we're getting. I think people are – there's a large amount of blowback, and people are more and more upset with political correctness. They're more upset with that today than they ever have been, and so these are becoming issues of the time. And I think that that's a good thing. So I think that we're going to see. I think that we bottom out in the next 3 to 4 years as far as what people will take, and then we either go in a really bad direction, or we start going back and trending back for back towards I think more, because here's the thing: once the government is completely debt ridden to the point where it really can't do much. Well, I mean, now they're still able to find people. Here's a notable. Did you hear about the World Olympics? They're going to Tokyo in 2020. The Global Olympic Games are going there. And this is going to be a win. And they're saying, wow, it's going to be a great boost to the infrastructure or the recovery. And I think this is the payoff to the Abenomics that is going on, because you have this rebuilding, this reinvesting, and they are economically screwed. And there's some other really looming things, like Poland stealing half of private pension funds to cut sovereign debt, basically nationalizing those debts, which maybe in the hands of the people that were, working with them, ING, Goldman Sachs, PIMCO, other private pension funds, maybe they'll do a better job. Maybe they'll say, hey, look, we'll be...
Well, here's the deal. You know what? The headline of the day, the headline that grabbed my attention as being the most truthful is Hank Paulson. Hank Paulson. Get ready for another financial...
But he's a financial terrorist. He might just be saying that to leverage you and to get people to buy into giving more power to these regulatory agencies.
There's no more power that's needed. There's no more legislation that's needed. There's no more infrastructure that's needed. There's no more build out of the security state that's required. There's no more hostility that has to be generated. It is ready. It is ready on every level, socially, politically, economically, militarily, around the United States of America. If you pick a segment, a sector, it is ready to implode. I cannot imagine that this path can be maintained for another 12 years. I just can't. And you know what? I don't. If we are in a slow decline like that, a slow spiral into oblivion, into the busting up of a once great empire, like we've seen throughout history, this is going to be a crap hole from left to right coast. But by the time that next decade passes by,
there's plenty of crap holes already in this country.
Sure,
we pretend that there aren't. And when you look at some of the ambassador cities for the country, New York City being one, L.A., the other big cities, it's unimpressive to me. you can find a lot of. I don't know if you've traveled the world, the infrastructure here used to be paramount.
It used to be top notch because
top notch.
It did used to be top notch, and now it's garbage. I travel quite a bit around the country for my day job.
This is bad. You should go to Europe. My goodness.
I lived in Germany for 4 years. I just recently came back from China, and I'm telling you right now, although
how was China? Was it dirty, crazy?
Box.
Oh man.
China is.
Where were you at? Shenzhen?
No, that's a major port deal city. But no, I flew into Beijing, and then I drove to a town called Baodin, and Baodin's a tier 4 city.
What does that mean? Explain me.
Tier 1 would be like Beijing, where the communist government makes sure that it's pretty and shiny, and it's there's a lot of economic growth and development in those major urban areas.
Right.
But when you get out into the countryside, a couple hundred kilometers away from those, then it starts to look like the third world nation that we all envision when we think of third world nations.
Right.
People live in mud huts and driving bicycles with a 30-foot stack of recyclable plastic.
Total feudalist society going on out there. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a kind of crony capitalist society.
Fascist, whatever. Yeah.
That we're seeing now, but their infrastructure, they are on this massive build out because they have all these American dollars that they're trying to spend, and they have to keep 1.6 billion people fed and working, or they'll have a revolution. So I mean, there's all kinds of building projects and programs going on. So where you did see these, I mean, it's very modern, but when you got out to the countryside, it was very third world-y, if that's such a thing. But we see that here. When I just recently in Minneapolis, up in Wisconsin, down in Nebraska, even Colorado, Arizona, and you go outside of these big major buildup areas, and it's dilapidating.
Yeah.
And when you think about the $9 trillion we've spent that we've added to our national debt in the last year, when we think about the Reinvestment and Recovery Act that we still are seeing signs of, they're still planted along highways everywhere. The money that has been spent prosecuting war certainly could have fixed any infrastructure issue we had in this country. But that's not what it's about. It's about, prolonging the prestige and the power of those that are the powers that be, prolonging this empire, prolonging this expansion as long as humanly possible. And that's one thing that is a scary prospect, is when the empire comes crashing down. I don't think it's going to be a slow petering out over a decade or two. I think there's going to be an event. There's going to be somebody standing up. There's going to be a currency collapse. There's going to be massive civil unrest because we can't paper over misery with phony statistics forever. I do believe that there's going to be some key event, tipping point event, that will be a shocker to most people in the country, Doug. Maybe you disagree with that. I think
there's always going to be a big shocker. I think that we've seen that throughout history. There's always a big shocker. There's apocalypse ahead. There's always something. Actually, I saw that on your website, Apocalypse Ahead. And
Apocalypse Ahead. Subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's keep informed. Stay informed.
That's a great banner.
Wide Awake newsletter, Apocalypse Ahead. Are you having trouble hearing me?
No.
You keep interrupting me. I'm going to come down there to Texas and just slap you upside the head.
Sorry, Charlie McGrath.
It's all right, man. I got that out. Thanks for letting me vent.
Yeah, well, that's what this is about. It's about the conversation, the dialogue. Because if you can't talk to me and the Doomers, then who can you talk to, really?
My family. This is my family away from my family.
Yeah.
Is the Doomer Crown. Let me check. Let me say hi to the folks in chat. We had, I think, 28 or so in there. That's pretty good for a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, we don't have shows that precede this one that are live that lead into, giving us hundreds of people live listening that are already kind of a built-in audience. Hey, here's something that I didn't get the guy's name, so I'm not sure because I actually retrieved this with my phone, but somebody left us this message, which was pretty nice, and I want to thank you, sir.
go.
Hey, this message is for Doug and for Charlie. I just want to thank you guys for all your solid hard work. Y'all take care.
There you go, short and simple. And that's what
That
it's
was
about.
awesome. How did he leave that?
I've got a text line that people can text the show 24 hours a day. They can text us at 512-222-3067. And that's for my show as well. And I guess I threw that out there on one of the DoomCasts. And so that's really cool. You can leave messages, shout-outs, say anything you like. We may use it or play it on the show, so don't...
Just did?
Yeah, and unless you tell us or specifically say this is, just for Charlie's ears only or not for public use, then if there's anything that you want to relay, of course you can do that, and we will protect your identity. And because
we're all about the privacy,
all about it. You can't be private with your medical records any longer. I mean, if there's anybody out there that would actually want to keep your secret, it's me, because I'm completely non-invested in selling information. That's not my business. So that's it. And because
that's definitely a topic for an upcoming program.
You know what? If there is the apocalypse, and it is ahead in this country, there's one place in Benton, Arkansas, that is going to be keeping it real. And probably, I bet you these guys, it doesn't affect their life one iota. And this is a good perspective, because I have a friend of mine. He's about 55 years old, American, second generation. He was born into farming and picking different things throughout the year. Basically, migrant labor. He was basically migrant labor, but he wasn't migrant. I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. I mean, he was a picker. He picked.
He was a migrant worker. He was a fruit picker. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, but the point was that during the really hard times, during all of the craziness, he said that his grandparents never even noticed that there was a depression during the Depression era, that it did not change their lifestyle, the way they lived, one bit. And he said, I used to have to crap in a hole. We had an outhouse. We didn't have running water until I was 18 years old. And he's like, if there's an apocalypse, he's like, I'd be just fine. I'd be just fine. He said, you know what I would buy? A water truck, because that's what you need. And we were just fine before that. We didn't have iPads, and it wasn't a big deal. And we went.
Here's a difference.
So it's just kind of a perspective on it, where certain people aren't going to be affected by all of this because they aren't relying on.
That's the problem, and I don't buy that argument. And people who say, well, I grew up in this rough era and blah blah blah. Look, there's nobody that doesn't have a cell phone right now, and we'll get emails on the three people in the country.
Oh, and he does. He has a smartphone.
There's nobody that's not plugged into technology. There's nobody that's not plugged in to the financial system. There's nobody who doesn't rely on the gadgets of the day. I don't, unless they're living in the Yukon Territory somewhere, that percentage of people is very, very small. Another thing that is far different now than at any time in the history of this planet is this unbelievable amount of debt that the whole world is immersed in. In the Great Depression, come on, man, nobody had mortgages or credit cards or car loans or student loans. I mean, what that means is even if you're sitting there, like Doug Owen, independently wealthy, doesn't have any debt, and everything's paid off. And
sure.
Of course, I'm kidding, but you know what I'm saying. If you're in a situation where you don't owe anything to anybody, that's great. My hat's off to you. Unfortunately, you live in a world that is quadrillions of dollars in fantasy debt, and when that goes, guess what? Your life is going to change, and it's going to change dramatically. And the folks that can handle again during the Depression era, the mostly agrarian society that we had. The folks that could maybe weather this thing are like I said, these are the folks who are living on the frontier out in Alaska somewhere. But even people that think they're well prepared for some kind of a massive global financial collapse, I don't think we understand how bad it could get.
Oh, sure. Well, it can get really bad. I mean, if you look at Zimbabwe or, really war-torn, crazy places that, have just, a huge amount of strife. I mean, downtown Baghdad. Yeah, I mean, that...
Maybe it'll be like Total Recall, the remake.
I mean, that's what I would compare it to. I mean, if you think about it, what would be the worst? What would be the ultimate low? And that's where I peg that. Lithuania, Kosovo during the shelling campaigns. I mean, I'm trying to think of something that would be, Damascus now today.
Yeah, Damascus.
People
right
living
now.
under complete
or Egypt
fear.
right now.
Yeah, Egypt, unrest, strife, millions of people screaming, yelling, the police using their apparatus against the people.
That screaming and yelling that we're talking about right now, in the United States, that could be achieved by the sinking of an aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf. That could be achieved, cutting off the supply of energy, or at least making it so unattainably expensive that suddenly your gallon of milk is $15, or you can't get a truck to deliver it the 1,500 miles on average your food travels to get to your supermarket in the first place. I mean, there's so many weak points in the supply chain. There's such a fragile nature of infrastructure that, I mean, any one thing that pops certainly could hobble a big, vast swath regions of the country, unless they use some of that 9/11 money and built a deep underground military base. That's where all the money went. Dumbs. They went to the dumbs, Doug.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all. I don't think that's far-fetched. I don't think it's really, I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory as far as, I mean, how much money did they spend building this secret infrastructure, this continuity of government?
Are dumbs real?
I think so, probably. Why wouldn't they be?
I just don't.
Being in the military, I saw the underground networks that they had in Norfolk, that were, World War II era, very old technology, but all nuclear blast proof. I mean, when you look at the reliability of old technology, that's why the military still uses it. He's like, wow, this seems antiquated and stupid. You're like, yeah, but that works.
I'm talking about the under the Denver airport. And,
sure.
And tunnels all the way, to Cheyenne Mountain and all over the country underground.
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, if you look at Area 51, the declassification of that, you'd have to imagine that because that's very public, there has to be at least 10 that aren't, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And I would say I mean, Dick Cheney has his own bunker. If Dick Cheney has his own bunker, why wouldn't the military have 10 bunkers that are bigger? It would only, and why wouldn't people richer than him have those bunkers? Not only in this country, but throughout the world. Why are they building and buying ranches or building infrastructure in places like Brazil?
What's coming. Yeah, they understand what's coming, and that. Actually,
or they know that there's natural gas. Maybe they know. Who knows what they really know? But they know that it's valuable, and there may come a time, at least. And this is what I look at. I always think that the worst could be for maybe 2-3 weeks until if there was civil unrest,
right?
That apocalyptic moment in this country where we really did have something that sparked chaos.
Right.
Whether it was a cyber or economic, financial, terrorist attack, maybe it's something that's, I mean, we can just go through the scenarios, but something that would impact it on a national level where we would just have a lockdown and we would have chaos. Maybe a solar flare knocks out,
I think it would have to be something. I think it would have to be something like, to do it on a national level, first, I mean, it would have to be something like the energy supply would stop. So be it electric or fuel, either one of them or a combination of both. Certainly, that is the lifeblood of this country. For 96% of the people that don't work on farms and the vast majority that live in big urban areas, without that, it's over. It's game over, and it's over very, very quickly.
Well, you go back to the 1970s gas rationing. Okay, so it would have to be worse than that, where you have different license plate numbers, different days according to your VIN that you could even get gas, or worse. So, I mean, in an energy crisis, we've been there. And try to look back. You know, we've had riots, the Watts riots. We've had civil unrest in this country. We've had the military engage the public on many occasions. We've had the bankrupting of central banks, but it would be bigger. It would definitely be bigger. But just recently, we saw Cyprus. That's kind of a hint of what happens when the government. Now in Poland, you'll see the reaction. What happens when people realize that the government.
What about civil war, buddy? I mean, I mean, certainly we could see.
But who are you fighting, really? I mean, who's the guy in front of you? You shoot the
I mean, it could. Well, perhaps, but I mean, we could certainly see civil unrest turning into civil war of sorts. I don't think we'll have north to south
race wars.
No, I think it would be more regional. You know, and you see that a little bit. You know, you have these
by FEMA region, maybe.
No, I think you're going to have states that say like states small populations, Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas. Even now in Colorado, although they have Denver, 3 million people,
a shattered union.
The shattered union, yeah. You see these folks in Colorado looking for legislation to secede. Now that ain't going to happen, obviously. Right. But I mean, I certainly could see that. I could see a smaller population state, getting the momentum together to say enough's enough. You know, Missouri. First of all, there's legislation every day. I was bringing up Missouri because they put out one of the Doomers actually sent me a link tonight about some of the legislation is passed or proposed in Missouri, making it the toughest anti-federal, anti-gun legislation state in the union. But states are, especially the flyover areas, states are, they're seeing the handwriting on the wall. We're losing our credibility around the world, mainly because of national actors in Washington, D.C. We're bankrupt beyond belief, and the realization just hasn't set in yet. And, so as we go forward, God willing, we don't have an immediate cutoff of our energy resources through some kind of war in the Middle East. And it doesn't have to be 100%. I mean, if we lose 10%, we're screwed. We're screwed. If we lose 2%, we're screwed. We use the capacity what we have to make gasoline and diesel. If we don't have that, we're done. But I don't want to digress in there. But
or the people rise up and get so piping mad that we actually start refining and bringing our own oil to market. It's not that we don't have it. It's not that Mexico doesn't have a huge oil reserve, maybe one of the largest. And so I think that those scenarios, you're going to have a lot of pissed off people. You might have 1 million people. You might get 1 million people into the streets. You might have people that set fire to their own neighborhoods and burn societies down and take to the streets and burn government buildings. I think that could happen. And it may during a civil unrest type scenario where people are just at their wits' end. But I don't see that lasting for more than a few weeks. And then people, because this is the thing, most people just want to go about their day-to-day lives. And you see that in crazy war-torn nations, places that are plagued with violence. You still have people that go about their day-to-day lives. Does it suck? Are you in imminent fear? Are you in this constant stressed environment where you probably are aging 5 to 1 years on average? Probably so.
Well, okay, I see how. I mean, I think you're using the 2 week to a month, 6 months, a year, even
like a Panama Flash attack, type thing where basically
what happens? Doug? What happens in your estimation though when let's say it's not an energy crisis? Or a solar event.
Let's say it's a financial crisis. Everybody goes and the computers have been wiped and the government has to deviate and has to come in and give you full support on every level because there's just nothing. Maybe the computers get wiped. I mean, what kind of apocalyptic scenario can we put forward? Something that's like the next level, the worst.
The next level would be, taking out of the doom scenario.
cosmic event, solar flare that destroys our power grid, taking out World War III in the Middle East, and then all hell breaks
like
loose.
the TV show Evolve.
Revolution?
Yeah, Revolution, where they have to evolve, and it's really yeah.
Stop saying evolve, you heathen.
Evolve.
Evolve. Dollar collapse, loss of faith in the U.S. dollar. That is certainly something that could very well be national, global in scope, and not a quick recovery. No pulling out of that in 2 weeks, because if the world loses confidence in the dollar, and the world is absolutely turning against, I believe, from obvious statements and obvious hostilities between the U.S. and other nations, including China, including Russia, the BRIC nations, everybody's trying to, over the last 5 years, have worked hard to situate themselves so they're not behest and beholden to the U.S. dollar. So if the U.S. dollar lost all value or was lost as a world reserve currency, or we had a dollar collapse, I could certainly see that leading to a shakeup that wouldn't be a quick recovery, Doug, because what are you going to recover with? The government going to print more money that has no value, or more money that isn't accepted internationally for
they
at
put
least
price controls. They regulate how much money you can take out of the bank. They hold
So
all
what?
of it.
That doesn't mean
they
anything.
give you other price restrictions and rules.
It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. The only thing that it could potentially stave off is mass starvation, because our food supply is still predominantly domestic, but everything else isn't. So if we can't have TVs flowing, or computers, or iPhones, or widgets, or plastic rubber dinosaurs coming flown in from India and China with U.S. dollars backing them, then the life as we know it is coming crashing down.
Well, that's okay. I don't care if people can buy their plastic toys and if they have to pay 10 times the price. I mean, at some point, you have the bottom where it becomes a value, right? Because there's that correction. So the dollar, because of the massive amounts of debt and the unpopularity, because it's tied to the national interest of the United States. So people and countries and central banks frown upon using it. And now you have the yuan or AKA the renminbi that is in the top 10, making its way there. So let's say you have the devaluation of the dollar. At some point,
I'm not talking devaluation. I'm talking collapse. I'm talking 1.6 quadrillion estimated derivative implosion.
Oh, I think
not devaluation. I'm talking about complete lack of confidence in that instrument. It's happened to every fiat currency that's ever existed. Most of them last about 40 years. There's no reason to think it couldn't happen with this one. Yeah, if we have a devaluation, then or a massive inflation, as we I believe have been experiencing, then you just keep going down the road spending dollars that the world is accepting. But if we go a different direction, which is a collapse of the currency, then everything stops. I mean, regardless of if somebody is like, I just need the bare necessities of life, well, food and energy, and I don't waste money at Walmart and that kind of thing. Well, that's great. Again, it ties back into, I don't care how the Depression guys got through it. I do know that this economy is still 70% consumer, and even if you don't go and shop at Walmart, or you don't blow money on going out to dinner every weekend, the economy that you live in absolutely relies on that to the tune of 70%. And if you don't have it, you don't have this economy, you don't have the lifestyle that you have now. And if you tack on, $17 trillion in debt, the loss of confidence in the currency, an out-of-control government who is spending money hand over fist, waging war, when it all if and when, I should say, it all comes crashing down, it will be shocking, it'll be quick, and it'll be, I don't think, a 2 or 3 week ordeal.
I just don't see that, because you have
Why?
the global interest, because it to the detriment of the dollar and maybe the securitization, which is just more attributed debt. You and I agree on that. If you and I aren't buying plastic dinosaurs, China is not doing well. They need to sell that, and they have a domestic market, but there's a lot of vested interest. there's a lot of things that countries want to buy. So at some point, when you have a bottom, there's an investment opportunity. So let's say if there is that flash crash and it loses, I don't know, 90% of the value. We have so much central government control in this country already. We have so many people that rely on digital and physical
Bitcoins.
food stamp subsidies. We have a complete takeover of agriculture. I mean, so many of the planks of the Communist Manifesto are already in action in this country. So you have this central government regulation. So with all of that control, you do have the mechanisms to continue. So yes, if there was that collapse, it would push so much pressure onto the government to, give people all the solutions that they already have a predetermined solution for, and they would be happy to hear the people roar for more government. But they're already feeding the people. They're already delegating and giving people different taxing systems based on money or marital status, how many children you have. I mean, so there's a lot of things that the central government can do to kind of offset that dollar collapse. Not that it wouldn't be crappy and sucky.
All right, well, here's the question.
Really sucky for a lot of people. And we already have, I mean, for the 10,000 plus people living in the sewers in Las Vegas and other cities around the United States, they've already seen the repercussions of this.
Okay, I would agree. Listen, I would agree on this point. The folks you just talked about living in the sewer, they're going to be the best prepared. They will truly know what it's like to live hand to mouth, and would have the least amount of lifestyle change, no doubt about it.
It's true, unfortunately.
I guess that's
shocking
the question.
To people that drive minivan Lexuses to the mall, maybe not so shocking for people.
Let me tell you what's shocking to the people that help facilitate the recent report that came out that consumer debt is now at an all-time high once again, or the people who spent $50,000 for an education so they can move back in at home. These are the folks that are going to be smacked square between the eyes with reality. Well, let's put this question, Doug Owen. Wow, we've been doing this for an hour and 26 minutes. Did you know that?
I figured that we're going a little bit long, but I was enjoying the conversation. So
me too. We're workhorses. That's what we are. Let's put this question out and get some responses, and we'll address it next week. Is Doug? Do you think Doug's on track with? Are we facing some kind of collapse scenario in the future that is going to be painful? Obviously, it's going to be a shakeup, but it's going to be a relatively. And I'm not going to, you don't have to say 2 weeks, but let's say a year or less until we get back to some kind of normal, some kind of moving back into the lifestyle, maybe degraded somewhat. But certainly nowhere near the absolute depths of collapse that I see eventually hitting this country and the planet, for that matter, except for maybe Canada. And I'm just saying that to all of our Canadian listeners. 30 million people, they got it figured out. They're not overtaxing the resources, and they're I think certainly going to be in a better spot. But anyway, so there's the question. Doug Owen, somewhat relatively short-lived collapse, or the Charlie McGrath, we are facing a crisis or a collapse that's going to be calamitous in nature and world-changing and super long-term. What do you think, Doug? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I really disagree with you. I just think that it's about perspective, and I think that
I wonder when you disagree with me.
And it's going to be interesting because when you have a correction like this, because I'm not a huge proponent of national debt. I think along the lines of Bill Still, it's very easy for government to create money and then loan it out, bearing interest, charging interest to companies or corporations. We have the opposite hierarchy where the government borrows money from private banks. I just think that the government should issue the currency. They could do just as good a job with people like Ben Bernanke as the Federal Reserve is, obviously.
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
I mean, they couldn't do any worse with people just like Ben Bernanke, and there's a complete indoctrination of economists.
Right.
And so
that's a fact.
So it wouldn't be that much different, but we wouldn't have this huge, never-ending. Now, I think the next debt ceiling is $17.8 trillion. They'll be hitting that in the next few months.
No. Next few days.
Oh, is it days? Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
That'll be by mid-October. They have to see. That was one of my theories on the imminent attack in Syria. Is that if we're at war with Syria, or at least distracted by a super tiny limited engagement where only Syrians are going to die, then they could bump up a debt ceiling without a lot of hoopla about it. But it's by mid-October that has to be handled. They can only go.
So to really summate here, I don't care if the Federal Reserve goes broke. The government can create money, and they will create money, or private entities are going to start creating things like Bitcoin that are already and other cryptographic digital currencies that are going to be the future. And PayPal and other integrated systems like the new iPhone with your thumbprint and all the rest of it will be integrated into this money system. So much of this is manipulated anyway now. And I mean, we're beyond. But when you have people that shun the cashless society control grid, but embrace Bitcoin, you realize, wow, we're well on our way to having so many of these systems be almost irrelevant and centrally manipulated to some extent, or at least, there's still the mystery of the Bitcoin.
I still like the Ellen Brown $1 trillion coin.
Yeah,
let's just do it. All right, I want to.
It's a financial equation, right? At some point, you could just say, well, the currency collapses. What comes out of that? Can people transfer it? How many of them get screwed? How much of that's going to be insured? And to maybe solidify your point. Now there's a huge change where the U.S. will no longer be insuring deposits outside of the United States. So the FDIC is now becoming geographically sensitive. So that's a transition. It says a lot about what they think about what's going to happen in Europe. So that's going to be the next big discussion is, oh, crap, the Eurozone is destroyed, and we're economically bound and tied to the IMF, and we're going to have to foot the bill for more IMF cash to save these debt-ridden
and don't
banks.
forget, with every penny, euro, renminbi, yuan that's issued in debt, there's a banker who's reaping the profit off of that. So it's the people of the world that are forced to participate in this globalist banking system that are at the end of the day the losers. So an ultimate financial collapse, you talked about it hurts the powers that be to a point because they operate in that system. I don't know that. I do believe that they reap, they reap the benefit. They look at Greece where you had national treasures being given over to private interests in order to satisfy debt.
Right.
The term of bail-in is starting to come into the forefront because the next go around isn't going to be the bank or the government, we, the people, stepping up to save banks. It's going to be banks taking what you got in order to remain liquid. Doug, can I read a comment or two?
Sure, let's do it.
See me switch like that? It's like
nice,
wow.
Nice segue.
Yeah. And listen, guys, leave more comments. We're getting a lot of people listening on the YouTube upload, and Doug, you keep track of the numbers on the downloads or the Spreaker listens. So, and they're good numbers.
Oh yeah.
But
not bad.
Yeah. Really happy with them. I just think in an hour, in this case, hour and a half, it's people are turning it on and listening to it. But comments are, I think we had like maybe 15 or 16 on this last one. Doomgasm, I love that. That was the first one left. Liking Doomcast more and more. Good chemistry, house party favor the underdog pound for pound. What? I don't quite understand. Liking Doomcast more and more. Good chemistry, house party, favor the underdog pound for pound. I don't know what that means, but
we're the underdogs. They must favor the underdog rather than the mainstream media. Maybe that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not.
Way to break it down. That was Zika Tanka. Thanks for that awesome comment.
Yes.
Because we talked about Dex last time, or we talked a little bit about his appearance on my program. And then Swamp Stalker That sounds like a Bigfoot hunter. Swamp Stalker said, when Dex is on, there should be a for entertainment purposes only. Be nice to Dex. But it is entertaining. There's no doubt about it when he's on. The only time I don't listen to Charlie is when Dex... Okay, that's enough. Be nice to Dex. This is from Craig Simpson. What is that Walking on Sunshine music? I want it as my Doomcast ringtone. That's Towley, right? You told me that.
That's Towley from South Park, and this is some free-to-use music that doesn't have any copyright. I've got the intro here. That can...
Walking on Sunshine.
I'll just put that up on the website, or you can put it on YouTube and they can download it. And you can just be a feature on this Doomcast number 7. I'll just put it up on my server here after the show, and then people can get it directly.
Right on, brother Doug.
Nice, yeah, and you can download an MP3 and then you can make it your ringtone if you have a smartphone or.
Doesn't everybody?
I guess.
Actually,
not. You know what was funny? I recently had to go and deal with a broken cell phone, and I haven't been to the company in a long time because I usually just buy those Go phones. You can slip your SIM card into it, and boom. So it's a real easy way to just kind of mitigate that and not have to deal with.
You don't have a smartphone?
No, I do now. I have the most evil phone you can imagine. I don't know it.
Smartphone.
What's that?
How long ago did you get a smartphone?
Just last Monday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Doug, you're going to be addicted. You're going to be addicted because you run a website.
You know what it is? It's not functional enough for that, and I don't have enough time to really mess with it in that regard. But, yeah, I've got it hooked up to the Twitter, so I can look at that if I'm really bored, or go browse email, which is handy, dandy. You can get some stuff done on it when you have downtime rather than pulling out the laptop. But for what I do in all of this, I mean, it's only cool to a certain extent because you're so limited. You're so limited in what it does. But to communicate with, and I'm not the biggest social person, texting all my friends and whatnot. So it's not.
You text me all the time, buddy.
But that's because you're a texter, and so I mean, you're. I text
I thought
back.
Since you were in Texas, you'd be into texting.
No. Come on, Charlie. That's just silly.
That's silly.
That's just silly. Yeah,
that's too delicious to believe.
Oh, I have that somewhere here.
That's just too delicious.
It is.
It's almost too delicious to believe, my friend.
That's true. Well, and
what was that? Was that at the? Tell me that was at something like the journalist dinner or some crap like that, where she could say something that it just dumb.
I don't remember the context. It's been so long.
It's too delicious to believe. I get a quote here, and I know you probably want to. It's time to wrap up, but I have these quotes sitting here, and I read them on occasion. They're quotes about tyranny, and I'm just going to read a couple of them because it is getting late. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. Fears the people, there is liberty. That was, of course, Thomas Jefferson.
It's a very simple premise.
It's a very simple premise. James Madison said my favorite, and I'll leave it on this for tyranny quotes. But James Madison delivered a quote that I wanted to share on this 9/11 because it's very, very relevant. James Madison, if tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. And man, it's amazing. You read some of these quotes that are attributed to some of the founding fathers. It just seems they were smarter then than we are now.
There's
crazy.
Plenty of brilliant people, but yes, they had seen how the powers that be and how especially the British monarchy operated. So most of these guys were well educated, and that's something that runs constant throughout history. And it's really only the people that don't understand history and the horror and the brutality of humanity because they don't really wrap their minds around what is capable that are really shocked.
Jefferson really, really believed that education and educated populace, and in general, let's say, an educated populace in general, because obviously there was beliefs then that are
different than the societal beliefs are a little bit different, a lot of bit different than they are now. But one of the things he was attributed as believing, and his writings indicated it, and some of his speeches indicated it, was that the populace, if not educated, was bound and determined to be ruled over, and tyranny was bound to flourish in a population that was not educated, and you see that coming to pass, don't you? I mean, you see with education continuing, our spot in the world continuing to fall. More and more people are. I hate to use the dumbed down because it's so overused in this field in independent media, but more and more people are dumbed down. I just used it.
Yeah.
And they want to just be entertained with gladiator games and bread and circus, and it's that lack of education, not the canned school education, but just the simple education of what freedom is, what self-determination, what sovereignty is. Those things, that education is sorely missing, not just here, but around the planet. And, these are things these guys talked about hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. Well, I think that people that are interested find it. It's not that you can't force the population to, read books. They are available. And, yeah, you're always going to have a certain segment of the population that is not interested, that is apathetic. You're going to have people that
a lot of it's by design, Doug. I mean,
absolutely. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about the core curriculum, the indoctrination. And what happens is that we become, through the systematic rehearsal and the regurgitation of state propaganda, we it starts with the Pledge of Allegiance to the super state that is above all and provides equality and justice.
Global force for good.
That's right. So it starts there. It starts with the way
James
that we
Jones is a traitor.
It has so much to do with the way that people teach their children and how they have been taught, and much of that is intentional. I've got the quintessential John Taylor Gatto DVD actually right here on my desk in front of me, The Ultimate History Lesson. It's a 5-hour journey examining the history, root causes, and consequences of public schooling. And if you haven't seen it, it brings so much to bear. But we become this a population of people that really do engage in cognitive dissonance. We engage in the Stockholm Syndrome, where we look at the state as our guardian, our big brother, but yet, it is definitely an abuser on many levels. And
no doubt about it.
So those kind of things, to have a profound change, we have to, just like you. I mean, you're a parent. That's one of the responsibilities that you have, is to turn your son into a man and to teach him about this. And that's the only way it's going to change. We have to change the mentality. And I'm sure that Thomas Jefferson was very well read. I mean, how many people read books? How many people read the greats? And I myself, with technology, with all the other things that we have today, find it very, very hard to put those things down, to be able to absorb and to just learn. And that's one of the things about doing the weekday talk show that I have really enjoyed, and that is the opportunity to spend more time doing independent research and independent interest in bringing more original content, because quite honestly, I've had more time to actually look at things and really do some.
The lovely Doomitha is a voracious reader.
Say that again. What was that?
The lovely Doomitha. That's our nickname for Mrs. Doug.
Oh yeah, Doomitha. Okay, that'll work.
Doomitha. Yeah, she's a voracious reader. She keeps you informed. She reads all the greats.
She does. Well, but that's the thing, is that you hope that you can instill some of that into your children, and maybe they'll share it with others on the playground.
If they don't, if you're doing a disservice if you don't, they need to learn. I mean, we need to learn as a question as a whole, and adults, and more are. I mean, that's why we're doing this. We want people to send it to people that are.
Yeah, being independent is cool, not being a consumer. And that's what they want you to be. It's not cool. And at the end of the day, you'll just
want you to be just stand in line and salute the flag and pretend it's all for the want of freedom and
feel
glory.
Inadequate. Take psychotropic drugs.
Yeah, make your day go by, go to bed, then die.
Yep.
My name is Charlie McGrath. My website is wideawakenews.com. This has been DoomCast number 7, joined by my partner in Doom, Doug Owen. His website is blacklistednews.com. I appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat room at wideawakenews.com and at doomcast.com or the Spreaker channel. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for leaving comments. And thanks for sharing this program. And please continue to do so. We'll be back next week with DoomCast number 8, DC8, coming at you next Wednesday. Doug Owen, it's been my pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, man. Thanks for spending the 12th anniversary of September 11th with me and the Doomers. And we'll see all of you next time. Take care.
It was like an hour and 44-minute therapy session for myself.
There you go. For sure.
Thanks, Doug.